Hello, buckle up everybody, because today we are going to hit Clubland. Yes, this is the place that was the origin for the phrase to go clubbing, because we're going to have a look around St James, which is where a lot of the gentlemen's clubs are located. So, along the way we'll hit a few little oddities, a few little sites, but also we will see the locations of some of the clubs as I mentioned, but there's some statues around here. I've got to be honest, I haven't looked into the history of any of them, but we'll have a quick look at those as well while we're here. Now, first thing is this tower. So this is the tower dedicated to Prince Frederick, the Duke of York, who was commander of the British Army in the late 1700s. And unlike the person who currently holds the office, this guy was actually A, very, very popular, and B, very successful. But very popular with his men, because when he died in, I think it was 1824, maybe 27, basically the soldiers and the officers agreed to everybody to do without one day's pay so that they could raise the money to build this monument to him. So this is down at Waterloo Place, and this was erected in 1834. So by all accounts, at that time, late 1700s, early 1800s, he was credited with sort of modernising the British Army, making it, an effective force, more effective than it was, I suppose I should say. Now the next thing we're going to look at is what is described by numerous websites and some walking tours as the only fascist monument in London, which is a bit unfair. Now, the origins of this come from the fact that this building here, number 9, back in the 1930s, and before that, this was the German embassy. But obviously, it had been the German embassy for some time before Hitler came to power in 1933, and so the German ambassador lived here, and there is a little memento of his time. So, hoping you can see that. Well, let me just see. Yeah, so it says Gyro, apparently a faithful companion, London, February 1934. Now, the general rule of thumb is that nobody says for certain exactly what happened to Gyro. Apparently he was a German shepherd, and by all accounts, the prevailing story goes that he unfortunately bit through an electric wire in the garden and died. And there's obviously the ambassador obviously must have been very, very fond of him, and had him buried here. And there's the little monument to him. Now, this monument and this actual spot isn't where Gyro is buried. Or I should say the monument and the dog were elsewhere at one point. Because over the years, the German embassy got sold on, and then the thing was getting redeveloped, and apparently whoever was digging up and doing the redevelopment found the body of Gyro and found this little monument, and so it was placed here and then later covered to preserve it for anybody of interest that might want to take a look. Well, is it a fascist monument? Not really, because the ambassador was the ambassador long before Hitler came. Apparently, he was old school, didn't really sit right with him, the new outlook that the Nazis had. And he did a lot to try and improve Anglo-German relations, so much so that when he died here, there was a big, not state funeral, but a big cortege, complete with military honours, taking his body down to be transported back to Germany. So he was very, very popular with the diplomats and the social circles that he mixed with over here. So there you go, the so-called fascist monument in London. Now I'm going to take a wander along Carlton House Terrace here, because we'll see the first of the clubs that we're going to look at. The thing is, you don't really get to see much. They're very private places. It's sort of gentlemen's clubs, you know, aristocracy for the most part. A lot of these clubs, you know, you're either going to be born into due to who your parents were, or because of the wealth of your family. But not as a general rule the sort of thing you can just apply for. So you can see there, number 7, it says the Royal Society. I'm not sure what's in number 6, but number 5 is the first of the clubs, and it's called the Turf Club. And apparently, historically, this has been, you know, very aristocratic members. There was a guy that does a lot of books about London, and he wrote a book in the 80s, and at that point, this had 18 dukes on its membership list. So Duke, in terms of royal titles, is pretty much up there, right up near the top. That's why the current king's sons, as well as being dukes, and you know, or as well as being like princes, they also get the title of being the Duke of wherever. But that is the Turf Club. Next to it, we have the Royal Academy of Engineering. And I'm just going to go up here because I remember there was a sign I came across, one of those sort of plaques to do with Francis de Gaulle. Francois. I say Francois, I meant Charles. Honest to God, I'm losing the plot. Charles de Gaulle would have been. I was thinking France. Oh, we've got a plaque here that says George Nathaniel Curzon, Marcus Curzon of Kettleston, 1859-1925. Statesman and Viceroy of India, lived and died here. Well, I can think of worse places. This one says Lord Palmerston, 1784-1865. Statesman, lived here. Now, he went on to become Prime Minister, if memory serves. So you can see we're rubbing shoulders with some pretty select company. Let's see. This is a plaque to the French, and obviously the sort of French resistance to the Germans, the ones that came over here and sort of reorganized themselves in preparation for going back and getting France up and going again after the war. Unfortunately, it's all in French, which doesn't help me, and it's a bit faded, so even if I could understand the odd word, I wouldn't be able to help you. So, well, obviously at the end, Vive la France, General de Gaulle, 18th of June 1940. I'm going to guess this will be one of his more famous speeches. And here we go. General Charles de Gaulle, not Francois, President of the French National Committee, set up the headquarters of the Free French Forces here in 1940. So, you see there's a lot of sort of distinguished people have been living around here and had places. And as I say, places this flash, you don't always get to see, who owns them or who's based in them. Just sort of, sort of nondescript in a way, despite being very grand. And here we have a statue. This bronze memorial statue of King George VI by William Macmillan stood here from 1956 on a set designed by Louis de Soissons. In 2008 it was moved to become part of the new memorial to King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. Okay. Now, I'll have a look at the front of that one at a later date, because I'm wanting to get on to other places, and there's a couple of other statues down there, so we'll deal with that another day. Well, I'll be Field Marshal Earl Kitchener of Khartoum, 1815 and 1916, lived here in 1914 or 15. I think it might have been, I think he died during the First World War, if memory serves. So Kitchener, you know, your country needs you, the big famous recruitment poster. So he lived here for a time. Oh, right. Now, we just saw the plaque relating to Charles de Gaulle, and here's the statue above the van. So we'll see what it says at the bottom of the statue. Okay. Charles de Gaulle, 1890 to 1970. Apparently the statue was unveiled by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, 23rd of June, looks like, but I can't see the year. But certainly very impressive treasures. There we go, Charles de Gaulle. Now I'm just going to go along this way. So I'm going to go back along the way we came to visit our next club. While I'm walking, I'll just mention, if you don't know, my name's Colin. This is part of my YouTube tours, part of the Plod With Me TV site. The hope being that some people who will never get to see London will be able to, you know, sort of experience it this way. And that's why I do the tours as a sort of free form, rather than stopping and editing things up. I like people to see the whole streets and the whole shebang, as it were. So our next statue it's the guy that was living across the street. So hold on, I'll just, there we go, tilt up. George Nathaniel Curzon, Marcus Curzon of Kettleston, erected by his friends in recognition of a great public life. So he was 1850 to 1925. So I can't say I'm familiar with his works, no doubt. The more I read, the more I'll come across him. But at the minute, I can't say I know anything about him that would be of any interest to you. A few years ago, my daughter and I were walking around this way, and it was swarming with vans and crew, movie crew, and it was to do with the Marvel movie Black Widow. And although they were all over the place, they hadn't actually closed the area off yet. And I have to say it was enlightening in terms of the detail that movie crews go into when they're making the movies that you're probably never aware of when you're watching them. And I'm a bit of a movie buff, but you know, even I wasn't aware of this sort of details, because as we were walking along this road, I heard one of the guys who was taking pictures and sort of inspecting the road very closely, and he turned around to somebody else and said, "Ah, yes, the sort of the texture and the sort of colour of the road matches exactly what we've got in Prague," which made me thought, well, they're obviously going to do a scene and they'll cut together some shots that they've done in Prague, and then it'll be here. And for us that are watching now, we won't even realise it was shot in two different places. It'll just look like it was all one thing. But it just shows you the level of detail. And despite the fact my daughter and I hung about for a while, we didn't get to see Scarlett Johansson, which is a big disappointment, certainly for me. Okay, again, another one never heard of. John Fox Burgoyne, Field Marshal, 1782 to 1871. Some of these guys lived to a ripe old age. Erected by his brother officers of Royal Engineers. Okay. And then there's a quote from Coriolanus. So, obviously, either his men thought a lot of them, or his family thought a lot of himself. He's going to be quoting Shakespeare about your service. So this one says, John, First Lord Lawrence, ruler of the, I can't quite make that out, during this Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. Okay, Viceroy of India from 1864 to 69, erected by his fellow subjects, British and Indian. Okay, I can't say I've ever heard of him. I've just spotted a plaque over this way, which I'm not aware of what it says. We'll have a quick look. It's the thing with these big houses. Got these plaques all over the place. The British Academy. Okay. Ah, okay. So, Gladstone. William Ewart Gladstone, 1809-1898, statesman, lived here. Now, he was Prime Minister several times. Him and sort of Disraeli were sort of on the opposing sides. Gladstone, very religious man. Like, even though he was Prime Minister and stuff, he used to be well known for going out among the prostitutes, and not for the reasons that most politicians do now, but usually because he was trying to persuade them to, find God and find a better way of life. So, deeply religious man. I don't know, like, he's very famous British Prime Minister, very in the historical terms. I just can't think off the top of my head what sort of achievements he had, but I'm sure there were several, given that the status that he has. This is a hell of a statue. This has got to be somebody good. guy. And again, I've never heard of him. It's amazing the amount of military people that have got big statues around the place, be it in St Paul's Cathedral, Westminster, and I've never heard of him, and neither have most people. Well, this guy, Colin Campbell, looks like there was something before that, but I can't make it out. Field Marshal Lord Clyde. Born 1792, died 18 something, which I can't make out. It's a bit worn and battered. That's gone. If I find out anything about these guys that's short and to the point, I'll put it in text. Now this guy I've heard of. Obviously everybody's heard of this guy. Okay. So, Captain Robert Falcon Scott. I studied this guy at primary school. We were told all about him and his heroic failure. So, Captain of the Royal Navy, who was 4 companions, Evilson, Bowers, Oates, Evans, died March 1912, returning from the South Pole. Had we lived, I should have had a tale to tell of the hardihood, that's a good word, hardihood, endurance and courage of my companions, which would have stirred the heart of every Englishman. These rough notes and our dead bones must tell the tale. That's taken from his diary. So, obviously Oates' famous quote, whenever, they were, it turned out they were only about 11 miles away from the camp where there was food and stores and everything that they really needed to survive, but they weren't to know that because they were stuck in the Arctic and it was blowing a blizzard for days on end. But whenever Oates felt that he was becoming a bit of a hindrance, and maybe that the little food that they had left would be better shared among the rest of them, he turned around to them in the tent and said, right, I'm just stepping outside, I may be sometime. Which is what I usually say when I'm going to go and use the facilities. Okay. This gentleman is Edward VII. He became king early 1900s. His mother was Queen Victoria, and he lived in a house. We'll see the house he lived in as we do maybe the second part of this tour. But he lived up here for about 40 years along Pall Mall. And you can see there it says Edward VII, Rex Imperator. I'm going to guess King Rex would be King Imperator. I'm not sure, I'll have to look that up. 1901, 1910. So that's not how long he lived, that's how long he was king. And that's why the early 1900s is known as the Edwardian era. Over here you'll see this next statue is to another explorer. Again, heroic failure. So to the great, let's see. We're going to tilt that up a bit. To the great Arctic navigator and his brave companions who sacrificed their lives in completing the discovery of the Northwest Passage, 1847. So that was Franklin. And I always thought, maybe I'm wrong, I always thought that basically they disappeared, because I know there was other, I could have sworn there was other people that went looking for them. But maybe I'm wrong, I might be getting my history mixed up. One of those things, I've never really read about. I've sort of caught bits and documentaries on TV years ago. But, yeah. Again, another one who tried and failed.
those people that were all in there.
Oh, I forgot to bring it down again. The reason why there's lots of police vans about is because there was something happening down on the Mall there. I have no idea what, but all the household guard and everything were marching up, and there was lots of bands, and very impressive sight. Okay, so this one, again, someone I'd never heard of, but it says Air Chief Marshal Sir Keith Park, 1892, 1975, and this relates to the Battle of Britain, which was the aerial battle during World War II. It says Defender of London 1940. Air Chief Marshal Sir Keith Park commanded number 11 group or number 2 group. I would say number 11. Fighter command which defended London and South East England successively during the Battle of Britain. Responsible for the hour-by-hour decisions of 2 group New Zealander. Keith Park epitomises the role played by those from Commonwealth and other allied countries alongside British forces in saving the nation from invasion. So it's good that they're recognising someone that's not native to the country, but that helped us out. So memorial to someone from the Commonwealth, which is always welcome. Now, I'm going to just step out here and hope I don't get run over, because we're about to have a look at the second of our clubs. So this one here is the Athenaeum. Now, if there was a club that you had the money and you wanted to be a member of, I would imagine it would be this one. Because rather than being founded based on inherited wealth or aristocracy or whatever, this one was aimed more at people who had achieved something. And so, the sort of famous writers, like there's the explorers and various other things, the scientists, you name it, they would have been members of this, well, still are today. So this is the Athenaeum, and that is Athene in gold at the front there. And if you take a look at the blue and white figures along the top, it's very sort of Grecian, and that's because the architect was wanting it to match what was across the way, because this was also a club at one time. I think this was a sports club, but don't quote me. Pretty sure it was a sports club. It's now the Institute of Directors, but basically you can see it's got the blue and white sort of relief along the top over there and the style of the building, and that's why the architect, I don't know if it's the same architect, but he wanted it to sort of reflect that. That was in the days when architects used to actually look at the buildings around them and then try and design accordingly. But there is one famous member of this club who left a bit of a memento, which I'll show you. So this very simple thing here, hold on. Oh. Alright, don't know if you can read that. It said, this horse block was erected by desire of the Duke of Wellington, 1830. So, Wellington was a member of the Athenaeum, and as they get older, like a lot of us, he was getting a bit heavier, finding it a bit harder to get on the horse. I'll say, I could never get on a horse. And so this block was erected as like a sort of a stepping stone to make it easier for him to be able to get up on his mount his horse. And he lived at the other end of Piccadilly, so it wasn't that far away. And I would imagine a lot of the time he would have had a horse and carriage, but when he'd fancy taking his own horse out, this would have helped him. And no doubt there would have been stables here and everything to help out as well. So that was the second of our clubs, the Athenaeum. And now we're going to walk along Pall Mall and see a few more. If we can get across. Now, a lot of these clubs sort of originate, sort of maybe late 1700s, early 1800s. And some of them weren't always here. Some of them had moved and then ended up here and just stayed. But the next one, whose doorway we can't see thanks to that big van, is the Travellers Club. So the Travellers Club, as you would imagine, was aimed at people who had sort of gone off, travelled, learned a bit more about the world. And in the early 1800s, when this one was founded, one of the rules was, now I've read a couple of books that give different figures on this. One of them said that you had to have travelled more than 500 miles. One of them said that you had to have travelled more than 1,000 miles, so I'm not sure which one's true. But either way, early 1800s, not many people would have done that, even among the rich, going travelling. As things have moved on, that rule has been removed, although they do like it if you've lived abroad for a period as part of the entry requirements, but I don't think it's hard and fast. But this is, as I say, the Travellers Club. And the thing is, inside, I've read descriptions inside, it's very oldie worldy, sort of imagine big sort of, leather chairs and libraries and rooms, sort of things you see in some of the movies where you got, elderly gentlemen sitting, huffing and puffing and, spending their time complaining about, the state of the world and them living in the rarefied atmosphere. Sort of eating and drinking very heartily, shall we say. And this one is the Reform Club. So this was the club, if any of you have read Around the World in 80 Days or seen the movie, the character Phineas Fogg gets bet that he can't circumnavigate the globe within an 80-day period. Obviously a bit easy now, but back in the day, not so much. And it was a bet taken in this club that happened. And then at the end he has to get back here by the end of the 80th day. And that's why whenever Michael Palin was doing his TV series or trying to travel on traditional means, so there was no planes or anything, it was sort of trains and boats and all that sort of thing. Whenever Michael Palin did it, he started here. And then at the end of the series, whenever he comes back here to complete and sort of have a chat, sort of about what it was like, they wouldn't let him back in. So, gives you an idea of the stuffiness of these organisations. How are we doing for time? Okay. So that'll do it for today. I have to cut the movies down to about half an hour at a time, but what I'll do, if anybody that doesn't know, like I say, if you have anyone that might be interested in sort of seeing around London, I usually pick up the next bit from this point, and then we'll do the whole area. So that's the end of point one. If you got this far, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you next time. But if you have any suggestions or anything you'd like to know, just drop me a line. Alright, so what can I say? Thanks again, and bye.